I'm Mark Arsenault. I'm the owner of Green Monster Landscapes in Dover, New Hampshire, specializing in hardscape and stonework, and I am a hardscaper.
What's happening, hardscapers? This is episode 214 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And on today's episode, we have another I Am a Hardscaper interview where we bring on a hardscape business owner and do a deep dive into their business. And on today's episode, we have Mark from Green Monster Landscapes. You can find out more about him on his Instagram page, Green Monster Landscapes there. But before we get into the episode, we need to say thank you to our sponsors, Cycle CPA. If you need bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, reach out to Cycle CPA at cyclecpa.com. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for $200 off their services there. We also want to say thank you to Inlight Outdoor Lighting. If you're looking to get into landscape lighting for your business, which I highly suggest that you do, check out Inlight Design on Instagram. That's INLITE Design. Shoot them a message and get that conversation started, as well as GPS tracking. If you need GPS tracking in your business, reach out to GPS Track It. That is on Instagram or gpstrackit.com/howtohardscape. We'll be talking more about these companies later in today's episode. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode. All right, Mark, let's get started to get to know a little bit about you yourself, how you got started in the industry. Take this wherever you want, however you got started in the industry, what brought you to today, and I'm sure I'm going to have lots of follow-up questions for you. So take it away there, Mark.
Yeah, sure. So basically, my start in the industry was building my first house and deciding to sort of take on the job of doing the landscape work myself. And it's sort of the timing aligned with my full-time job that I had, which we sort of had an industry slowdown and was temporary layoffs over the summer. And after doing my own house, realized I kind of enjoyed it. And I just sort of made up this little ad and pinned it up at a couple of like hardscape suppliers in the area. And a couple of phone calls came in and did a terrible tumbled bluestone patio for someone that I'd be so embarrassed to show anyone now. And but apparently the guy liked it because he gave my name to his brother, who needed a retaining wall, and his neighbor needed a retaining wall. And so it just sort of started snowballing from there. And I actually stayed on board with my full-time job for maybe a year or so. And the work just came in so quickly and progressed so fast that I had to kind of make a quick decision, and which was, yeah, I'd rather do this, I think. So
Gotcha. That's an interesting start to the industry. It's typically, I work for a supplier. I stared lawn mowing. That's a very unique entrance into the industry.
A little bit, yeah. I've never worked for another landscaper. I was not in the industry at all.
Yeah.
So those first two walls that I mentioned, I didn't even have any equipment, and I sold those jobs. And there were walls to tear down. It was actually waterfront walls. They were on a lake, in the lake bed. So I really got thrown at the wolves pretty quick. But I didn't have an excavator, didn't have a skid steer, didn't know how to run an excavator. And I bought 2 used Bobcats and had them delivered to my house and learned how to run them. A few weeks before the job started. So.
Awesome. That's great. What was, if I may ask, and you can let me know if you don't want to say it, but your previous career, what was that in, or what were you
I was a field service engineer for a precision alignment company that we worked on paper machines and printing presses and corrugators and basically any like stationary rotating machinery.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I did a lot of traveling and things like that. And so this was 2003.
Yeah.
And that was the year I started, and actually the year my daughter was born. So I was also thinking about like not traveling so much anymore. So it all kind of like came together that way.
Okay. So then what was it that drew you to starting this business besides, your own house, your own project? What was the draw to getting into the hardscape and masonry side of things?
Yeah, I don't know that I was ever super drawn to it until I started, doing it myself,
Yeah.
For my own house. And then I just kind of liked it. I was drawn to the equipment a little bit. I thought it was, I always thought Bobcats were cool. It'd be fun to run one of those. And, any chance I had to do so, I would. I guess, and just being able to work in that environment where, I get to run equipment and build stuff, which I always like doing anyways. And it just turned into something that, I didn't know that I was going to want to do that, but it just developed real quickly after I started doing things for myself.
So then you mentioned you posted a couple of ads and you got that ball kind of rolling and leads were starting to come in. Did you find that your schedule was filled up quite a bit kind of right off the bat, having your own house to kind of use as a show?
I mean, I don't know if it filled up right away, but as they slowly trickled in between working full time, not only working full time, but working away from home. So it wasn't like, okay, well, I can work at this after work in the evenings. It's like, well, no, I live in New Hampshire and I'm in Pennsylvania for the week, so it really became difficult to manage. And I mean, I still remember my last job being like in Connecticut and like trying to order materials and schedule it and talk to customers like on my drive home. And it was just like, I just can't keep doing both, and it was kind of like just time to like, we got to do this without the safety net and see what happens. So
that must be a difficult decision, especially with having a new daughter, like you said.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you talk us through that decision-making process with your family? And obviously the big draw being that you're not traveling around, you can be with the family a little bit more, but starting a business is quite the jump off, right?
It is. Yeah. It's, it's a lot of work. I actually think back at it, now that I'm like, well, I was 30 then and like I'm 50 now. And it's like, wow, how did I even pull that off? I must have wanted that pretty bad because I think about it today and it's like, I don't know, that's too much work, to start something new like that. But like, and I worked a lot, like when you travel, like we typically did 10, 11, 12-hour days when, we were gone in the field and, you just, the energy to be able to do that. I really don't know where I gathered that from because I wouldn't be able to do it again today. But I don't know. It just came to the point. I think it was just like, this is just too much. I can't do both. And I think I saw the potential that, well, I can be home more and I can work for myself. And I'm going to be here to see my daughter grow up and all the things that, I don't want to miss all the stuff that she's going to do. So, my wife had a job, her own job at the time. She eventually quit that job too and came to work for the company. But it really was just, there's these two things I'm doing. I can't do them both. What would I rather do? And then, chose the one that I wanted to do, which is this.
So then talking a little bit more than a few years after you start the business, the obvious thing here to talk about, especially with where we kind of find ourselves coming to in the timeline of where we are right now, where the market is the 2008 recession there. Were you kind of getting yourself established leading up to that recession? How did you feel during that recession? How did you kind of get through that?
I've been doing this 20 years now, and I've never been without work. And I do remember having, I think we had 3 crews around that time. And, basically we all worked through that. So I don't ever remember feeling like, we got hit by a recession and that it was, a difficult time for us. So, I mean, I know there's a lot of talk about that, but we had more of a mix back then. We were doing maintenance at the time. We were doing mowing. We were doing plowing. We were doing all that stuff, which we don't anymore. But so perhaps that maybe was part of it. But we've always had the build work, install work as well, and never slowed us down enough, even through 08 and 09. That actually 09 was the year that we sold that first house that we landscaped and built a new home on the same property and built a shop at the same time. So
Nice.
yeah.
Awesome.
So I guess '09 wasn't that bad for us.
So you brought up the maintenance, you brought up the snow plowing and how you're not doing those anymore. What was the decision to drop those?
Well, the mowing was always hard because we were in a pretty rural area. And just like it just wasn't like suburbia where everyone had a lawn that needed to be mowed. There's a lot of lakefront properties where we were, and a lot of them didn't have the big sprawling lawns. That was a lot of our business, was these lakefront properties, but they just didn't have that sort of maintenance. So it was always a lot of windshield time with our mowing, and driving into 2 or 3 or 4 different towns, surrounding towns, to do it. And then we just sort of stopped pursuing that side of the business, slowly started losing accounts to attrition. It wasn't that like we ever did bad work, but someone would sell a house and the new owner wouldn't hire us, or we had a municipal contract that ran out and someone else got it, or we didn't rebid it. And it got to the point where it just like, it wasn't worth it anymore. And then I just found someone and sort of was like, just kind of handed them to them. Hey, if you want these, they're yours, and, take them over. So, and then we held on to sort of the seasonal cleanup work for a few years. Felt that it was like, well, it's a good start to the season. Like, oh, we got, 300 yards of mulch to do, or the end of the season, like, oh, we have these spring cleanups to do. And that was okay for a few years too. And then as the design build portion kept growing, all the maintenance stuff just sort of became a headache and like an obstacle. Like, we have all this build work to do, and we got to pull people off of it for cleanups or for mulching or for pruning. And eventually it was just like, we finally got rid of all that too, and just strictly became design build.
So then now in the wintertime, do you still do a little bit of snow plowing to keep the guys busy, or do you keep on build all throughout the winter?
No snow plowing at all anymore. We're generally trying to do some sort of project through the winter. I mean, it's never like it is in the summer. Winter's tough. It's hard conditions, but sometimes it's just enough to, break even, make payroll, keep the guys busy. I actually made a decision last year to not take on a winter project at all. It just felt like everyone needed a break. Like, we needed some downtime. We launched Synced Up this winter, which, like, there's no way we would have got all this stuff done if we had another project going. I had 5 different designs with permitting that had to be done. So there was just so much, like I said, and everyone needed a break. Everyone really needed a break. So it was good timing this year to have a few months off.
And then, so as you kind of continue to build the business, you drop off maintenance, snow plowing. Has it always been a part of your business model to do those beautiful incorporations of natural stone into your projects and all that? Has that always been from the very beginning, or have you kind of evolved into that?
No, I think we've always done a little bit of that. Like, we've always sort of have done this thing with boulders a lot. We're just in an area where we have a lot of them, and they're, readily available. And I always enjoyed mixing them into walls and then the patios and the paver work. I think it's becoming a little bit more prevalent, more so now. I'm doing more natural stone. And I mean, the story's kind of long. Maybe we can get into it now.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, I've downsized a lot. So to make a short story long, so I did mention my wife got into the business, and then after 13 years of business, we separated, and then we got divorced. So we also had a minority partner. So basically I would run a crew, my minority partner would run a crew, she would run a crew, and then both of them decided to leave the business at the same time. So 2020, right at the onset of COVID, I had kind of restarted the business almost with just me as the sole owner and a small crew. So, we went from three install crews to one. And then I progressively started only, or I shouldn't say only, but being much choosier about the work that I took on, because it was easier to take on work that I wasn't really excited about when I could send someone else to do it.
Very true.
Yeah. So, I didn't want to take on jobs that I wasn't going to enjoy, that I didn't want to do, that didn't get me excited. So, and I like to think that it shows now in my portfolio that, the work's a different level, and it's, I don't know, it's more signature style, I guess, than what we used to do.
Right.
Did away with, the first thing I did was call the builders we were working for and was like, sorry, but yeah, I'm not gonna be able to work with you guys anymore. No more cookie cutter patios and walkways and, all those things that I just, they were fine when we had 3 crews, and you sort of needed to feed the monster a little bit more than you do when you're, smaller company with 4 or 5 guys. Or even the first year was just 3 of us. And then we've, built back up a little bit, and I'm just choosier about, doing what I want to do at this point, doing projects I'm interested in that excite me, that, I feel like I align with the customer and they're going to give me some creative freedom. And I just find my work way more enjoyable now that I have more control of that process.
I want to interrupt this episode to talk to you about GPS Track It. When it comes to running a landscaping business, the question isn't what do you do, but what don't you do? If it's not a customer that needs your attention, it's one of your drivers or one of your vehicles. But you already know that GPS Track It exists to help you know more than what you already know, like the most efficient routes to maximize your service potential, like whether or not your vehicles and crews are where they're supposed to be, like how to save unnecessary fuel costs and other costs. And we're going to be covering the benefits of GPS tracking in the future on this podcast. So we're going to continue with the benefits of GPS tracking, but we'll let our fleet advisors give you the full picture. Call 866-693-1291 or go to gpstrackit.com/how-to-hardscape. Once again, that's 866-693-1291 or go to gpstrackit.com/how-to-hardscape. Link will be in the show notes. Absolutely. So I want to ask you then, what is an ideal Green Monster Landscapes project? What is that one that comes in and you get really excited to design it, get into that, and get ready to build it?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess if I have to pick an example from this year, was the job we're about to wrap up here. We've been on for 2 months now, and this was actually one of my first jobs that actually came from Instagram, and it's also one of my biggest single projects, not staged all at once. So it's a nice mix of stuff. It's an outdoor kitchen, so there's natural stonework with the kitchen, with the seat walls, but we also have paver patios, and then we have natural flagging. I guess ideally, like anything with stone, really, anything with stone. It actually looks very much like the drawn design, but there's still, every design to me is a bit conceptual, and there's got to be some room, in the field as you're building it, for sort of artistic interpretation. So Yeah, as long as, we have a little bit of that and we're using, um, either pavers and, I don't mind using pavers. I think we do some cool and fun stuff with pavers too. But definitely when there's some natural stone elements to the project, um, that's what I'm going to really be interested in working on.
So because of the uniqueness of natural stone, and like you were talking about there, the artistic sort of process of shaping that natural stone and the randomness of natural stone, um, how do you communicate that with a client? Or are you specifically trying to find those clients that understand that part of natural stone, right? Where it's really up to the artist on site, essentially, as to how that's going to look. It's a little bit difficult to communicate that as opposed to pavers, which are much more easier.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it really can be. I mean, I find myself sharing, photos of our previous projects a lot, because people just don't know, when you're saying like, oh, we're going to build you a stone wall, or we're going to build you a paver patio, and then they don't always realize what you can do with the materials and what, how creative you can be. And people, I think more people than not are pretty conservative until you sort of show them what else you can do with it. And then sometimes they're even, they bend a little bit, and then they still don't really realize what they're going to get until it's done. And then typically they love it. Funny little stories. We just did a patio for a guy up here on one of the lakes, and we did his sister's house right next door like 3 years ago. And so we did her patio, which was like just 3-piece paver, same color border. And then we did his this year. I think we used 3 different pavers in it, and we did some curvy, swirly stuff, which is sort of what a lot of my stuff has in it. And she came over one day when we were there, and she said, "How come I didn't get a patio like this?" And I said, "Well, like 3 years ago, I was still listening to what my customers wanted, for one." And two, like, she's a landscape designer. I'm like, "You're a landscape designer, and you told me what you wanted, so I did it." And your brother actually said that he wanted exactly what you had, and I said okay, and then I gave him this. So, so he kind of let me do what I wanted to, even though he told me like I want one just like my sister. But I was just like, well, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this instead. So,
With you mentioned the first job from Instagram there. Have you found
yeah.
that people are starting to take notice of your work and wanting to, like, that first job from Instagram? Are they looking at your Instagram feed and saying, I want that? This is kind of the inspiration that I want on my site. Or how did that conversation go when somebody reaches out to you from Instagram?
You know what? I mean, I don't know that I've seen a ton of other leads yet from Instagram. Um, I know everyone seems to say this, but it really does feel like most of our stuff is word of mouth. Because I find like even when I get like a website inquiry, it's sort of like then I dig a little deeper and they like, well, we talked to so and so, or we saw a project you did here or there, and um, but yeah, I mean, we're trying to grow the Instagram and trying to get more projects from there. So, it's kind of as I mean, Instagram's a big time suck, but hopefully soon it's gonna, it'll pay dividends eventually, I suppose.
Right, right. Yeah, and so getting into that, when a client or potential client does contact you, what does that look like? What does that conversation look like in terms of uh, pre-qualifying to make sure that they are or could be a good fit for Green Monster?
Yeah, I mean, I'm typically trying to find out some specifics about the kind of work that they want done. Um, what kind of products they might be interested in, what they've already looked at, like if they've been to a supplier, have they checked anything out, have they looked at things online, and just sort of get a feel for like how deep their research has been already is sometimes a decent indicator of how serious they are. And one of the things I've been doing a lot more of lately too is trying to get like people to send me some pictures and send me some rough dimensions. We sort of have this technology in our pocket now. Instead of running out like we used to do like 10, 15 years ago, it's like, oh, I got to go run and look at this project. And you get there and it's like, oh my goodness, this was a waste of time. And sort of being like in a rural area, I mean, I could go be looking at a job that's 30, 40 minutes from home. So yeah, it's nice to sort of like put your eyes on that, like through a text message, a picture, or an email. Put your eyes on it before you kind of make that trip out there and realize it's easier to tell right away, like, well, this probably is not for me, and the way we are nowadays, it's, one of the first questions is also like, what's your time frame? Because like, let's figure that out first, because if it's like 30 days or even 60 days, but there's not much sense in going much further here if you're really married to that time.
And how about product selection? When do you get into that type of process? Or are you, perhaps the best way to go about this would be that initial consultation? How are you scheduling that? And what type of questions are you asking them on that initial consultation?
Yeah, I mean, that usually comes up right away, that initial consultation. I mean, especially if it's a smaller project, like, oh, we're just looking for a patio and maybe a front walkway with matching materials, or, that sort of thing. We'll talk about that pretty early. And then I find like in the bigger projects, it's more about sort of getting them locked into a design contract, so that way I'm not spending a bunch of my time like trying to figure all these details out without like, let's make sure that this is going to go somewhere, get them on board for design, and then, get a little bit more concerned with the concept that we're working on. And then we drill down into materials, a little bit later on.
Got it. And then, so that initial consultation, do you charge for it? Yes or no? And why or why not?
I haven't been. I mean, I know there's a lot of new talk about that, and I think about it a lot. So I don't charge directly to the customer. I've had this argument with a few guys, and I don't know. I don't charge directly to the customer, but like, it's in my budget as unbillable time that I'm spending every year, like looking at jobs. So I guess to some degree, it's kind of, maybe it, irks me a little bit, like the people that don't hire me sort of get the free consultation. It's free to them, but someone else is paying for it, because it's, people that are actually hiring us. That's where it's built in. So, I mean, I guess I'm not opposed to it. I don't know. It just, 20 years of not doing it, but I do feel like there is a need for it. But it's also, when I see that a job has the potential to be a significant project, that's also why I try to get into like, so the free estimate basically on that is like, it's just me like whipping out a canned estimate on the design and send it off. So, once they're committed to the design, it's all billable from there on out.
And yeah, I'm the same thing. I don't do paid consultations either. And with that being said, you did mention trying to get them signed up, especially if it's a larger job for that design. Where does that conversation start? And is that a deal breaker to go out there for that initial consultation? Like, are you trying to sign up larger jobs for a design prior to that initial consultation or afterwards? Or is that kind of flexible as well?
Yeah, I guess it's flexible. I mean, more and more of our work the past 3 or 4 years has been the larger scale projects. And there's just too much going on in them that, I mean, it's one thing to go do a patio, like with a hand sketch or like, I mean, myself and my guys, we've been doing this long enough and they're good enough that it's like, all right, here's it's a 12 by 18 patio or whatever. And this is the field and this is the border. And like, they can handle that, they don't really even need a sketch. That I could whip them up a little sketch and like, this is the pattern or whatever. But I mean, that's smaller stuff, really. A can of spray paint and the estimate or the proposal with the description of what we're doing is sufficient. But when you get into these projects that have multiple elements to them, and grades and different products, and it makes sense to have the design. You really can't do them effectively without them, because then you're figuring out what to do on site, and either we're going to pay for that because we didn't figure that time in, or it's time and materials, and the customer's going to pay. They're going to pay for it either way. They're going to pay for your time on site to figure this stuff out, or they're going to pay ahead of time and know exactly what they're going to get by having a design.
Absolutely. And then when you're actually sending that proposal, how do you typically structure your proposals? Are you doing a full lump sum price for the project? Are you splitting that into work areas and showing a breakdown of each of those work area pricing? Or how do you go about your proposals?
Yeah, I mean, there's typically some kind of breakdown. Sometimes it's more than I actually want it to be. I'm trying to get away from that a little bit, but the synced up software is also sort of driven towards work areas as well. So it's sort of like I was starting to get away from it some, and now I'm finding myself back into it. But I mean, people do like to pick and choose what they want, but some of these bigger scale things, it's like, well, I mean, you can't really do this without doing that. So an example is I just, we sold the patio for this year, but sort of on a slope. They need a little retention. They need like a 2-foot, like we could just like stack some boulders on an edge. But so I broke out patio and retaining wall, and then she didn't pick the retaining wall. And it's kind of like, oh, that's on me. Like, that was stupid. I should,
Gotcha.
We got to do it. So now I got to break it to her. It's like, well, we're still going to build a retaining wall, right? So what do you want? You want me to do the cheapest way we can so that like you can keep your budget, or, but it's all, I mean, if it's a big project too, you get up into, 100, 125, 150 or more, to just throw out that number like that. I think most people want to see a little bit of a breakdown, but I don't know. Every time I think I have people figure it out, I don't. So
Gotcha. Gotcha. When it comes to a payment structure for projects, what are you typically, do you have a typical percentage up front, percentage progress payments, percentage at the end, or is that flexible?
Yeah, I guess flexible is a good word.
Yeah.
I'm all over the board on that sometimes. I don't know why. I'm my own worst enemy at times, but I don't like to take a lot up front. So my down payment, like, usually is I'll send a proposal, they'll accept it, and it's usually like 10%. And the reason I do that is because we're always booked out so far. I always feel like if people are giving me 25, 30, 50% up front, and like this has happened. It's not just like I feel, this has happened. When they give you that much money up front, then they constantly hound you about when you're going to be there. So it's like, I don't want all your money right now. Just give me a little bit to put you on the schedule. I know that you're there, and not like you're going to get your nephew to do it in the meantime. But I also don't want to be hounded every week about when we're going to be there. So to me, it's sort of like, well, I told you August, and it's still August, maybe September, and when you have, like, I don't know, $25,000 of theirs, and you've been sitting on it for 3 months, I feel like they get antsy, and they're always hounding you and pushing you to show up. So that's like a stressor I can do without. And I rather like collect the money for the work I'm actually doing. And so it's usually like 10%, and then we'll do 50%, and then ends up being the balance when we finish. That changes a little bit on the bigger jobs, so we do progress payments. We've also done larger scale projects that were T&M, where I've just gotten a draw every 3 weeks or something. So I'm just flexible with it, and I change it depending on the project.
You work hard to build a successful business, and because of this, it is important to work with companies that you can trust, rely on, and whose missions are to give you the highest quality product and customer support. Low voltage outdoor lighting is one of the easiest ways for you to grow your business and increase revenue. Using lighting can make you more profit, add that wow factor, and make your business stand out. Whether you are already using outdoor lighting in your hardscape projects or not, it's time you check out InLight Outdoor Lighting. As a professional hardscaper, we know that you need efficient installs, less callbacks, and premium products to have a successful and growing business. InLight's got you covered. They've created some of the most premium and unique lighting on the market to make your project stand out and wow your clients with their unmatched light quality. It gets better. InLight has an unbeatable customer support team, provides many educational resources like online and in-person training, installation videos, and so much more. They care about your business growth and will be with you every step of the way. For more information on how InLight can help you grow your business, check them out on Instagram at InLight Design. That's at INLITE Design on Instagram. DM them to find out how to put more money in your pocket this season. Now back to the podcast. So then, Mark, my next question after that is could be related to the payment structure. Depends on where you want to take this, but it's a question I ask everybody that comes on the show, and that is a horror story that you've experienced from your time in business. It doesn't have to be payment related necessarily. It could be job site related, could be employee related. But the reason why I ask horror stories from everybody is for those contractors just starting out or thinking about getting into this, and just to prepare them for what can happen, maybe put guardrails in place to prevent these things from happening to them in the future. But Mark, do you have a horror story that you'd want to share here?
I don't know that I have a real horror story. Maybe my biggest horror story is working with my ex-wife in the business for 4 seasons between separation and final divorce. So that was a rough 4 years of business.
Yeah.
That was tough, but we're past that. So things are better now. But horror stories. I remember having 2 really difficult customers the same year, back to back. And I don't know why. They were like sweethearts to start, and then they just turned evil, for no apparent reason. So weird. I don't know. People are weird sometimes, but I don't know. But major horror stories. We had a guy drive a skid steer into a septic tank that he knew was there.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah. And then so the guy that was running the job he had a CDL. We had a 12-ton excavator at the time. So he went back to the shop, grabbed the 12-ton excavator and pulled it out of the septic tank.
Wow.
So it was kind of like, like one tire was in, it was like maybe a 35-degree angle in the tank. What else? Horror stories.
Well, going back to that client there that you mentioned kind of changed throughout the project, and you couldn't really tell what kind of happened there. How do you manage the remainder of the project there where something like that might happen? How do you get past those things? Or is it just a matter of head down, let's get this job done and let's get out of here?
I think at that point in my career, it was head down and like, let's get this done and get out of here. I would probably handle it differently today. Well, I think today I would see the red flags earlier. Through experience and I don't want to call myself mature because that'd be a stretch, but through maturity and experience, I think, you're better at picking up some of those cues earlier on, and not just like, and certainly like, I'm not like I used to be where it's like, oh, we got to sell this job. We got to sell this job. We got to sell this job. Whereas, I'm a lot choosier now. And I probably today I would have smelt that out earlier in the process. And now I would probably just have to like, all right, call a timeout and just have a discussion. Like, I'm not sure what's going on, or if you're not happy, or if we need to do something different to change the way this is going, but it certainly doesn't seem like it's going in the right direction. How can we fix it? But I'm just more hopeful that I don't have those sorts of experiences anymore. Yeah. Because I really love what I do. I enjoy this a lot. I enjoy the interaction with my customers. And feeling them out beforehand is part of that, and knowing if you're going to be a good fit together, personality wise.
Mark, you've mentioned a couple times being choosy for projects and allowing yourself to choose the right clients, choose the right projects. Do you find that your unique designs and incorporating that natural stone into your projects, do you think, or do you find that over the course of years that having that in your portfolio has set you apart from others in your same market, that has allowed you to be more choosier? Or is it word of mouth that has built up over many of years that has brought a lot of different leads in? What has allowed you to be more and more choosy through the years on projects?
Well, I think part of it right now is the demand.
Yeah.
So hopefully that continues. I feel like there's going to be a little bit of a slowdown. I don't know how significant it will be. Even our phones are a little bit slower right now, but I'm also seeing that the stuff that's coming in is also interests me. So, I wish I knew, I guess.
I'd say your natural stone, the incorporation of that and the unique projects that you've done, I'm sure people want that, and that makes them want you, right? Or the green monster touch.
I think so. And part of it is selling what you like to do, selling what you're good at, posting on Instagram what you want to sell, or putting on your website what you want to sell. We did have a pretty major revamp of our website. Was it last winter or the winter before, maybe? And like, I took down a lot of stuff that, like, oh God, that was like a paver patio I did in 2012. Like, I think we can retire that picture, and put on a lot more stonework on our website. So that's one of the common, conversations I think in the industry is like, post and publish what you want to do, like not the other stuff, because if you're posting a bunch of like little walkways, people are going to call you for little walkways. If you want to do these larger scale stone projects and full design build, then those are the sorts of things that you need to show. So I'm making an effort to do a lot more of that than I used to, and not just be like, and as the longer you're in business, the greater your portfolio becomes. You don't have to like throw out every single paver project you've ever done. Get a lot pickier and show the creative stuff, and show the stonework and the things that you really want to do, things that are interesting.
With equipment installation practices, especially with natural stone, is there anything that has helped you along the way in terms of equipment, or recently that you've purchased in your business for equipment, or want to purchase in the near future? And same thing for installation practices, things that you live by in your business that have really shaped your business. I will just throw that question out there as is. Equipment, installation practices that you live by, anything that you want to touch on there?
Certainly installation practices. The open graded base has been a big change for us that I wish I had done so long ago. And there were things that I did years ago, like with open grade, and like I don't know why the connection was never sort of made that, like, because I've always sort of done my raised patios open grade, and um, I remember my first walls that I ever was doing. I was doing like the 3 or 4 feet of excavation, and then filling it all with stone, and then the geogrid and the stone. And then everyone was like, "Oh, that's stupid! Like, you shouldn't be doing that. Like, you're hauling material out that you can use for your backfill, and you're buying more stone." And it's like, no, that's the standard now, you know. So it's like, okay, well, I guess I was on to something even way back then. But yeah, I mean, stone is so much easier to work with than dense grade. It just has so many advantages. It's crazy. So I'm glad that's sort of become industry standard to some degree, I guess. It's kind of regional, I suppose, whether or not you have good accessibility to 57s or clean stone or whatever you want to call it. But it's made our life so much easier with open grade and just so many more benefits to it in a freeze thaw environment, like us and like you're in as well. So yeah, from an installation side, I mean, that's one of the big ones for us. Equipment wise, the two biggest ones for me, definitely suction equipment. With the amount of stone we're doing as well, large scale, large format, flagging, stone steps, being able to do all that with suction equipment and without straps and pry bars and all that sort of stuff has been such a great advancement in what we're doing. And then, we actually did this big project that we've been sort of talking about. Is that it's the first time, first time I've used machine suction to set pavers. So we were doing 2x3 slabs with suction equipment, and it was like blown away by how fast we laid down 7 pallets of slabs. So that's anybody, I would recommend anybody, if you're not using suction equipment, then check it out for sure. And then the tilt rotators they're just amazing. I'm just blown away by how they've changed the way we work. They've made everything so much easier. Getting away without having another machine on a job site. It just really changed the whole flow of how we do things now. So much different, so much easier. So we have 2 machines now with rotators, and yeah. So last year we had one with, one without, and it got to the point where it was like no one wanted to be in the other one, And then when you got in it, you're like, oh my God, this is so stupid. I can't even spin this bucket around. I need to get my material over there, but you're just trying to, flip it out with the bucket the old fashioned way instead of just spinning it around and placing it exactly where you need it. It's crazy that we didn't jump on this technology as North America before now. But it was almost we threw one on a machine because we needed to spend some money for tax write-off. Yeah, so and we kind of had all new equipment, but it was we got to spend some money or give it away to Uncle Sam. So we put one on, and here we are, the biggest proponent of having the tilt rotator. It's an amazing addition, and it went half the cost of the cost of the machine, or half the cost added on to. It's worth every penny. Yeah, I would no regrets at all.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Now you have 2 of them.
Yeah, we have 2. We have a 5-ton and a 6-ton excavator, and each has the same size. I don't know, what do you call it? Rotator. So they're all interchangeable between the 2.
I just want to take a break from today's episode to talk about our sponsor, Cycle CPA. You may have a CRM or project management software in place, but what data are you using to ensure your estimating is accurate? Having a proper accounting setup and accurate bookkeeping done is key to understanding overhead expenses and other costs that must be recouped in your estimates. Cycle CPA is a remote bookkeeping and CFO firm that helps to connect the dots from the financial reports to the hardscape and landscape data needed in order to reach high profits. They provide landscape and hardscape industry benchmarking, job costing, financials by service line, advisory meetings, and much more. Cycle CPA's team of accountants are specialized within the hardscape and landscape industry, and you can visit them at cyclecpa.com, and for $200 off, mention the How to Hardscape podcast. Now back to our episode. Mark, a couple more questions for you before I let you go here. One being anybody that has helped you along the way that you want to give a shout out, or people that you look to for inspiration. This could be online, offline, but any mentors, anybody that you want to give a shout out here.
Well, like I'm old, right? So, like no one helped each other 20 years ago.
Oh yeah.
There was a couple like online chat boards and stuff, I guess, where you could ask a question, but like you had to prepare yourself to get like beat up. But yeah, and I don't even know if how many of those guys, I know some of them are still in the game, but every once in a while, like out of the blue, I'll connect with one of those guys from like way back when. But with Instagram now, it's been great because like you connect with so many people. And I talk about Instagram being a time suck, which it is. But I do like building the reels and doing the stories and stuff. They're fun. But certainly the greatest benefit that I've seen from Instagram is like the collaborations I've had and these other guys that have joined me on some of my projects.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's been a few, especially the stone guys. I mean, my stone game has like improved. Oh God, like I don't even know how to put a number on it. Like multi-fold in the past 3 seasons, just from working with guys that I was following on Instagram that I sort of reached out to, and we started talking. And it started with the first guy that came up and worked with me was Stone Bear Mason. He's from Massachusetts, and he came up. He worked a few days with me on I begged him to come up and help me out for a few days on a project, which he did. And then he introduced me to Matt, everyone goes by an Instagram handle, right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
how we know people. So
exactly.
It's Margin Mallet. And he was just up here with me for the past 2 weeks. And great guy. Like we have a great time working together. And he's taught me so much about building dry stone walls and using chisels and hammers to a degree that like I never even realized was possible. Another guy is Instagram ski, Graham Walerzik, who is a very talented, creative sort of guy as well. So we've done quite a few projects together. Starting the end of last season, he jumped in with me on some stuff and really helped me get through a couple of key projects that we were really needed to get done before winter set in. So his help was really instrumental on those. And he's even helped me. I'm building an outdoor fireplace here at my house. He's been working with me on that. And he worked with me on this outdoor kitchen that we just did. So, definitely these guys that I've, actually worked with probably have had the most impact, on, we're just being together and actually building things together, is so much different than like seeing someone on Instagram. But I mean, there's other guys out there too Masco, he does some really cool stuff. The New England land artisan, Phil, I really admire his work. Another guy who does a lot of really cool natural stone work blended with pavers and manufactured products is Alex from Inca Stone. Yeah, he does like people are not following him, they should, because he does a lot of really cool work, high quality. It just, yeah, I've talked to him a few times on the phone. Really nice guy and like spectacular work. And yeah, anybody that does cool stuff with granite, cool stuff with rocks, or even like mixes the two pavers and stone together, I always admire that sort of stuff and enjoy checking that stuff out.
All right, Mark, a final question for you, but it's a big one. What is one thing you know now that you wish you knew from the very beginning? This could be business related. This could be personal related. You can take this wherever you want to go with it. But what is that one thing you know now that you wish you knew from the very beginning?
There might be a couple, but I think the biggest one might be that the customer is not always right. And I think that's especially true from, like, I don't know if I should say the design perspective, but like how you're supposed to build something or materials you should be using, and I see a lot of new guys like on Facebook and some of these groups are like, they'll post something and it's kind of like, I don't know about that. And they're like, well, that's what the customer wanted. That's what the customer wanted. Like, yeah, but this is your portfolio you're trying to build, and just because a customer wants you to do something that doesn't make sense or isn't right or isn't going to look good, like, doesn't mean you should do it. Be the expert, be the voice of reason, and I think there's a fear of people starting out that, well, I don't want to lose the job by not doing what they want. But I think you have to be more persuasive to teach these customers or educate these customers as to, how you can do this, how you should do this, what's a better way to do this versus maybe what's sort of they've developed in their mind as what they want. And maybe sometimes it just means that, you have to walk away from something that you're really not going to want to be associated with when it's done.
That's something that hasn't been brought up yet.
Okay, good.
So that's a great,
good.
Great
maybe
topic.
It's not good. I don't know.
No,
Somebody might beat me up
excellent.
over that. But.
Customer's not always right. I like that piece of advice. And like you said, you see things kind of pop up, and it seems to be the excuse people give is it's what the client wanted. And like you said, like you mentioned, you redesigned your website to show projects that you want to sell, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And want to be associated with your business name, right?
Right.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
Mark, it's been an hour, so I want to say thank you so much for your time on this Friday early evening and taking the time to do this interview. If where do you want to send our audience to? Where can they find out more about you, yourself, what you've got going on?
Yeah, well, it's Green Monster Landscapes, and I think that's the Instagram handle, Green Monster Landscapes. Facebook website is gmlandscapes.com. So yeah, we're out there in all those different places.
So where does the Green Monster come from?
Well, it's a reference to the Red Sox.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm a pretty mellow fan at this point, but back in 2003 and 2004, kind of like when the company launched, I was a pretty intense fan at that point.
Gotcha.
But, a real Yankee hater back then. But we've won a few World Series since then, so I've kind of calmed down a little bit.
Boston has not done bad recently in the big sports, so you can't complain, I guess.
Nah, I can't complain. And you know what? I finally realized, well, I'm not out there. There's nothing I can do, so I'm not gonna lose any more sleep over that.
Mark, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. Once again, thank you to Mark from Green Monster Landscapes to join me on this episode and answering all my questions that I had for him here. If you haven't already, Apple Podcasts rating and review, I would very much appreciate that. And if you're on Spotify, I would very much appreciate a rating there. It's as quick as 2 clicks on Spotify, and on Apple, you can do it as just the same amount of time, but you can also add a written review, which I will get to reading the written reviews on future episodes. So thank you if you've done that. And if you are looking for GPS tracking in your hardscaping business, reach out to GPS Track It at GPS Track It on Instagram or gpstrackit.com. Thank you to Inlight Outdoor Lighting if you're looking for landscape lighting in your business. Reach out to them, INLITE Design, that's Inlight Design on Instagram. And Cycle CPA if you're looking for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services. That's cyclecpa.com. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for $200 off their services there. And we look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.